The foundational practice in mindfulness training is meditation. Now, there are a lot of varieties of meditation, and you may be a long-time meditator, or you may have never meditated. We're going to use in this training a very basic mindfulness meditation known as Vipassana. And I'm going to outline the 4 steps of this process, and then we're going to do a little practice. So I ask if you have some other tradition that you're working with, that for the purpose of this class, keep this practice as your main practice. So the first step in the practice of meditation is we place our attention on some object of present moment sense experience. Now, we could actually work with any of the senses, but traditionally meditation begins by finding the breath in the body, sensing where you feel your breath the strongest in the body, and focusing your attention there. Often it's one of 2 places that we find our breath, either in the rising or falling of the belly. You may take a couple breaths and see where you feel it. Or you may find your breath in the nose, the nostrils, as you breathe in through and out through the nostrils. The nose hairs are fairly sensitive. Or there may be some other place you feel your breath. There's no right or wrong place to sense your breath. Just get some place where you can focus your attention on the breath, in the belly, in the body. In the second step of meditation, what happens is, regardless of how you attempt to keep your attention focused on the breath, your attention will invariably wander off, usually to somewhere in the stream of thought, although your tinnitus is an equal likely to cause you to be distracted. It doesn't matter what distracts you, we just get distracted from our focus. And this brings us to the third step, in which we notice that our attention has been distracted. So we notice where the attention has gone. And again, it may be somewhere in the stream of thought. Our thought processes are running 24/7, or the tinnitus or some other noise could distract. There may be some bodily pain that might distract you. We simply notice that we've been distracted and notice what has distracted us. And then in the fourth step, we simply bring our attention back to the breath. So that's the process. As we say, it's simple but not easy. Simple because what could be simpler than simply placing your attention on the breath and following it? Not easy because our attention tends to wander all over the place. So that's the practice that we'll be working with and refining throughout this class. We'll talk a little bit about what this has to do with our tinnitus, but that will be better done after we do a little practice and get you a bit of experience with it to help you understand how it's going to be able to work with our tinnitus. Before we begin this formal but brief practice, I want to give a couple of things to look out for. First, I would recommend as we start this class that when you practice meditation, you have some background sound, something else besides your tinnitus to focus your attention onto. Talk a little more about this afterwards, but don't just sit and practice in silence. Second is that meditation can be a wonderfully opening and revealing exercise that can be, as we've seen, useful for a lot of different things. A lot of benefits come from the practice of meditation, and I've talked about some of those. But it's not a practice without some associated dangers, if you will. And that is, just sitting by ourselves can often be triggering. Maybe just sitting and the sound of the tinnitus can cause you to be hyper aroused, or it's possible a memory or memories can flash in that can set you off. We call that, as I said, hyper arousal. Or you may start to dissociate and just become what we call hypo-aroused and overly disconnected from what's going on. In meditation, we want to stay within what we call our window of tolerance. It's all right to be triggered a little and to disconnect a bit from your thoughts, but we don't want to go overboard in either direction. And if you notice yourself being triggered, pushed, and extremely uncomfortable at all times, please take care of yourself, and you can always stop the meditation and come back to it when you're feeling a little more calm and relaxed. So with those two warnings, if you will, we will begin a brief practice to provide you with some experience of the practice, which will help us understand a little more about how this is going to help us with our tinnitus. So there's no right or wrong way to begin a session of practice. You can be sitting in a chair. You can actually be lying down, although there is a danger in lying down and meditating, and that one can fall asleep, which would not really be useful in terms of working with a practice and developing our attention. But if you're comfortable lying down, you could certainly try to do that. If you have a formal meditation cushion, that could be useful. And you can even meditate standing up if you wished. But most of us tend to have a seat, so we'll just assume we're sitting in a chair, and we want to begin by settling in with our body and feeling ourself in the room. Begin by just getting a sense of your feet, where they are grounded on the floor, feeling yourself in place, feeling the weight of your seat on the chair, sensing the hands as they are maybe on your thighs or perhaps folded in your lap. We like our back to be erect but not rigid. We say as if a rope were pulling your head from the ceiling. It's a noble position and a position that also facilitates good breathing practices. And speaking of breath, for our basic practice, we simply breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. And it may be comfortable to close your eyes. It's where people often want to begin the practice with. Or you can actually, if you're not comfortable closing your eyes, keeping your eyes focused on the ground in front of you, maybe somewhere between 2 to 4 feet, in a gently position we call soft eyes. So whichever one of those works for you. And we begin by, again, locating our breath, placing your attention where you feel the breath the strongest. And that may be in the rising and falling of the belly. It could be in the chest as it expands and contracts, or in the air as it goes into and out of the nostrils. Just finding a place where you can settle your attention. Feeling the in-breath and the out-breath. Following them like you might follow waves as they went into and receded from the seashore. Just gently placing your attention on the entirety of the in-breath. Perhaps noticing the pause at the top of the in-breath, the exhale, and the corresponding pause at the end of the exhale. And if the breath is not working for you as a place to place your attention, you can also try focusing on somewhere in the body where you feel perhaps a little more calm and rested and grounded. Maybe the feet or the arms, hands can be places that some people find a good place to ground their attention. And even in whatever other sounds you have on could be a practice place to hold your attention. You may want to say to yourself, in as you breathe in, and out as you breathe out, as a way to hold your attention in the present. And at some point, and despite your best efforts, at some point the attention will wander off, maybe distracted by your tinnitus or just watching whatever thoughts that come across your mind. When that happens, simply notice your attention has wandered off. Notice where it's gone to. You may even want to say, thinking quietly to yourself. And then bring the attention back to the breath. So we'll sit like this for a few moments, trying to place our attention on the breath, follow it, noticing when it wanders off, where it's gone to, and bringing the attention gently back to the breath. Breathing in, know that you're breathing in. Breathing out, know that you're breathing out. The attention wanders off. We notice and bring the attention back to the breath. So let's sit like this for a few moments. When you're ready, slowly opening your eyes if they were closed and reconnecting with the room. So let's talk about what this practice has to do with our tinnitus. And basically, I identify 4 skills we develop in meditation that are useful in working with tinnitus distress. And I call these the core skills, C-O-R-E. And the first skill, and the one we'll be working with specifically today, is concentration. Now, concentration is simply focusing your attention on a single point, a single thing. And there's nothing unique to meditation about concentration. The professional musician in a concert is incredibly concentrated. When it comes to meditation, what we concentrate on is some element of present moment sense experience. And we begin, as I said, with our breath. It provides a simple, clear place to ground our attention. Now, what's important about this practice of concentration is when we concentrate, we are essentially informing our brain that everything else is unimportant. And we bring our focal point to this place of our attention. And this, informing our brain that everything else is important is a way we begin to put our tinnitus in the background. The more we engage and perfect this concentration, the easier it is for the tinnitus to slip into the background. Again, more on concentration in a bit, but let's move on to another skill that meditation develops, and that's observation. Now, in observation, we are noticing our thoughts, and we briefly got a hint of what that feels like in our practice when your attention wandered off. It wandered off either to somewhere in the stream of thought, and even if it wandered off to our tinnitus, it is usually a negative thought about our tinnitus, like, I wish it weren't there. So we are able in meditation to begin to work with our thoughts to open up a space between our thoughts and our reaction. And this becomes, and we'll talk more about this next session, this becomes vital in training ourselves to be non-reactive to the sound of tinnitus. The third key meditation skill, the R, is relaxation. Now, it was only a brief session we had, but even in these brief sessions, many people notice the body begin to relax through the practice of meditation. And there's actually been research on this for almost a half century now in terms of the ability of meditation to reduce all of the stress markers in the body. The work was first done in the 70s by a Dr. Herbert Benson, and he published his findings on the ability of meditation to reduce things like stroke, heart attack, and get people off of blood pressure medication. He was a cardiologist, and he used tools that he had first discovered in working with monks in Tibet, in bringing these practices and simplifying them in much the way I've simplified them for us today, to train his patients to, as I said, get off of medication and lower the risks of heart disease. The book was a bestseller in the 70s called The Relaxation Response, and is still available today. So we know that meditation is a powerful tool in relaxing the body, and this becomes vitally important because with respect to tinnitus, our body is generally in a heightened state of tension as a result of the tinnitus. And the more we can work with relaxing the body, the better we will be able to handle our tinnitus. So relaxation becomes a key component of the practice of meditation. Although it's not, I feel I need to add, the goal of meditation. I compare it to the runner's high. It's a very powerful side effect, and one we certainly want to cultivate and make use of. But the main purpose of meditation is really derived from these first two skills I talked about, the ability to focus our attention where we want it and how we want it. And the last of these skills, the E, is equanimity. Equanimity is defined simply as calmness of spirit. And I'll be talking more about this key trait in the fourth of our sessions. But it's the ability to find within ourselves a resource to relax and find a place of inner stillness that we can use as a ground to support ourselves in the face of tinnitus and help us work with finding peace and calm and abiding in spite of the noise that tinnitus may bring us. So that's just a little bit on the 4 key meditation skills that we work with and how they help us with our tinnitus.